Can you make it pretty? Can you do the UX? Can you add a wow effect? I've heard this many times in my career, especially as I've set up a design team at Societe Generale, a 150-year-old bank. But I've been chatting to a lot of designers, from agencies, startups, in-house design teams, also from the GAFAs. And the truth, we all share the same frustrations. Because what we really, really want to hear is, can you make it usable? Can we do the UX together? Can you tell me what's broken? Well, to achieve this, you need to influence your environment. And yes, you can have influence as a senior designer, but also as a midweight and as a junior designer. Or even if you're not a designer, but you believe in design. And if you want design to be strategic, you need a strategy. And my goal today is to help you find your strategy. I actually have a secret. I wasn't born a UX designer. I started my career in finance on the trading floor. I was explaining financial products to clients who could be anything from farmer co-ops to regional banks. I worked in Paris, Hong Kong, and London, and it's funny to think that I was actually part of the people for whom we design today. I suffered from the same badly designed tools. And I may have made the same comments back then. Oh well, just make it pretty. To be honest, complicated was cool. You were cool when you had 8 screens filled with numbers and convoluted applications. But okay, you may be thinking that I'm going to give you a magic formula. Like the 5 things to say to get people to bow down to you. Well, no, because the world is complex. Humans are complex. But as designers, we do have the tools to understand these complex problems. So let's identify the different types of problems and see how we can act on them. With time, research, and observation, I realized that there are 3 types of people. So let me introduce them to you. First, we have Hostile Jean. He says, design? I don't see the point of doing design. Then we have Contemptuous Paul. He says, so you're the designer? Okay, grab a seat over there and do whatever you do. Finally, we have Manipulator Audrey. She says, oh great, you're gonna make my product pop. Do they sound familiar? I've certainly met them at work. And for each one, I'm going to talk about how you can approach the problem and share 3 strategies that worked for me, for my team, and that you can reuse to basically mind the business. The goal here is to change your work dynamic with them for the better, hopefully. And you know what? Life is like in a video game. If you want to convince the top management, it's a bit like going to the end game's big boss. No, it's too dangerous. First, you have to deal with the mini bosses. The Jeans, the Pauls, the Audreys, because they're the ones who can make your life difficult. They are the ones who we need to collaborate with every day, even when they don't get design. But if they're convinced, like in video games, it'll be much easier to convince the big boss. They will help you. Okay, let's start with Jean. Jean says the following. Can you make it pretty? I know what they need, the users. Can you make my logo bigger? Jean thinks that design and user-centered design are not necessary. Maybe just to look nice, why not? What's the problem here? Well, there is a lack of user empathy in Jean's mental model. It's a problem of culture. And there's actually an easy way to recognize people like Jean. They tend to think that the users are the problem. If they make mistakes, they need training. And this is how we end up with user guides, handbooks, cheat sheets, all of this. Jean thinks that because his topics are complex, it's quite normal that the screens are complicated. Users need to adapt to the system and not the reverse. It's true that traditionally, we ask people like Jean to know everything. As managers, they should know more. They should know what to do, right? Otherwise, why do we pay them for? Getting Jean to say that he doesn't know could be a sign of weakness. Alright, so how do we do? How do we start convincing Jean? Well, what we usually tend to do is this. Show big studies, big numbers. But changing a mental model is hard. When did you last change your mind about something? Yeah. Something important, right? Not what you're gonna have for lunch or dinner. In reality, we don't like to change our mind because it creates cognitive dissonance. So here are 3 strategies that can work. The first one is the foot in the door. The idea is to start small with smaller steps. Don't overwhelm Jean with big studies, acronyms, expert jargon. Instead, ask naive questions. For example, on a project, we started to accumulate too many call to actions. Every time there was a good reason to add a new link, a new functionality, a new button. So we listed everything in an Excel spreadsheet. And this list was used then as a support for discussion. We ended up removing the duplicates and less used actions. And so little by little, we asked for more. Can we review them with the users? Or maybe can we invite users to the design workshops, etc. Second strategy, the bandwagon effect. We all have this tendency to mimic our peers. That's why we end up doing the same things and going to the same places as our friends. And you can use this effect on Jean and mention his competitors. Oh, look at Bob from the other department. They did some usability testing with real users and they got a lot of praise. So why don't we do the same and do it better? Even if Jean is not convinced or not yet convinced, it's okay because he needs to have a FOMO, a fear of missing out. By the way, that's how we got the Xbox. Bill Gates wasn't convinced at all at the beginning. It's only when the co-creator of the Xbox said during a meeting, "What about Sony? Do we let them own all of the home entertainment system?" That's when Bill Gates changed his mind. You can check the interview, it's on YouTube, and it's amazing. Strategy number 3, the crab. I've made up this name, but I use it all the time. It works great. It's a simple idea. Don't confront Jean directly. You may upset him. Instead, find something that makes Jean suffer as a user. And by transferring the explanation, doing the crab, he'll be less emotional and more rational. And at Society Journal, I found the example. It works every time. Basically, it's a security tool that all employees need to use to request access to sensitive applications. And before we started redesigning it, it was a real nightmare to use, especially when you were a new joiner, because the actions were hidden and worse, the confirmations too. Once you've selected an application and that you clicked request, you actually had to go to the bottom of the page to click confirm. And guess what? Nobody scrolls to the bottom of the page to maybe look for some kind of confirm button. And like most people, when I first joined the company, I closed the page and waited 2 weeks and nothing happened. So yeah, everyone suffers from this tool, including the managers. And when I talk about it, they complain, they really should have asked us. Yeah, ask the user. To wrap up on Jean, don't be in a direct confrontation. It's a culture problem, so go easy on him. Alright, let's move on to Paul. Paul said things like, "Can you do the UX?" Or really, I just need a quick review. It'll be fast. Can you show me your design tool? I'll do it. Paul knows that design is important, but he's not quite sure how to make it work in his agile model. Maybe a bit at the beginning or a bit at the end? Or what if we can try and hire someone quickly, like an intern? This time, the problem is organizational. There is a conflict between the resource and the project management. And there's a swear word for this: the organizational differentiation. What's that? It's the common tendency that we all have to turn ourselves against each other at work, because the division of labor splits us into different jobs. And this can quickly become a toxic environment. Alright, I know this sounds a little bit theoretical, but don't worry, I found the perfect illustration on the internet. Hope you're ready. I don't know if a lot of people have seen this before. It's a perception matrix. On the diagonals, we have how we see ourselves. Let's have a closer look. Developers, they believe they are top scientists. Designers, oh well, we think we're all Steve Jobs, right? And project managers, they think they are running the world. But elsewhere, it's how other people see us. And it's suddenly less flattering. Because designers, we often complain that we're seen like this or like this. But we are also guilty sometimes of saying our developers like this. And project managers tend to see them like this. And have you ever wondered how project managers are perceived? Like this? And they have this tendency of breaking everything right. So that's it, the organizational differentiation. We're in a bubble, we feel right more important. And the funny thing is, you can find these matrices in any industry. Like, did you know that people in astronomy hate each other? Here's the matrix. So if there's anyone who works in astronomy or who worked in astronomy, please explain the jokes. Why is there a Mario here or E.T.? I don't get it. And I have friends who works in archaeology and engineering. They showed me the same matrices and I couldn't get the jokes. To me, they're all engineers and they're all archaeologists. And I didn't even know that there were different kinds of them. At the end of the day, designers, developers, project managers, maybe we should just tell people that we are webmasters, because we need everyone to build added value services. It's a no-brainer, right? We need a balanced approach. So here are 3 strategies that can make it work. The first strategy is to align your processes. Clarify your methodologies and write them down. What you do and what you do not do. This will protect you from external pressure. And next time when Paul wants to bypass user research, for example, you can simply say, okay, Paul, you're the boss. But we're going against the procedure here. I can guarantee that people become much more accommodating. Because most people don't want to be accountable for going against the procedure. Usually. The second strategy is to align your qualifications. List formally the skills and the tasks of a UX designer, for example. I know it seems a bit strict, but this will help people understand and accept new jobs, and especially clarify everyone's role. You will also avoid the trap of the technical tool. Like, when people think that because they know how to use Sketch, Adobe XD, or Figma, well, that means that they know how to design. It's a bit like me thinking I can write Lord of the Rings because I know how to use a text editor, and I can't write it. Third strategy, speak your company's language, because this will allow you to hack your explanations. For example, at Société Générale, as a bank, we are all trained on risk management and to be risk aware. we talk about risk taker and risk averse. So one day, when a product owner asked to squeeze at the last minute a feature, and that feature was changing the whole navigation, everything, the whole information hierarchy, instead of talking about lean startup, feedback loop, etc., I just said, all right, Vincent, I don't get it. We designed and tested everything. Why are you adding so much risk now? Are you such a risk taker? And Vincent, he's actually a trader. He manages risk every day. He made the connection, and he agreed to release the first version and wait for client feedback before iterating. To wrap up on Paul, it's an organizational problem. So don't be afraid to get your hands dirty on the organizational setup. Okay, let's finish with Audrey. She says, please add a wow effect. I want a mix of these apps. I need the screens for a big meeting, and it's usually on Friday afternoons. Audrey is not like Jean or Paul. She knows that design is important. But it's not so much for the user's benefit, more because it gets sponsors' engagement in her presentations. And the problem here is that we are misusing design to conceal business issues. And this reminds me of something. The Fyre Festival. I think a lot of people have heard of this festival. But did you know that they were first a tech startup in the Silicon Valley? They were working on an app, and they decided to organize a festival to promote that app. And the festival was advertised everywhere on social media, Instagram, everywhere. And they did what they do best, communicate on a prototype. But behind the scenes, they had no logistics. And the festival happened, but had no electricity, no water. I mean, it was a catastrophic release. And by the way, this is a real picture of what happened in real life on the island. I highly recommend the Netflix documentary if you haven't seen it yet. As designers, we have the power to simulate experiences. So we have to use our critical thinking. Today, there is not such a thing as, don't ask me, I'm just a designer. Especially when we talk about dark pattern, ethical design. And it's also what is expected from us now. We should provide guidance and advice. When there's trust, we can be honest and work more effectively with the Audreys. And, well, I can certainly confirm this. And I have a personal anecdote to tell. When I posted a short version of my talk on my Medium blog, one of my product owners commented, but instead of saying, "How dare you make fun of me?" he said, "Possibly my favorite article of you. Also, glad you switched my name to Audrey." Whoa, that was close. Alright, so how do we do with the Audreys? Again, I'd like to share 3 strategies. The first one is to learn the business. It goes without saying that if you want to understand what is happening, what is going on around you, well, you first have to learn the business. And I think you know me by now. I found a meme on the internet to illustrate this. Google Classic. It's an old school Google. I think it was an Easter egg. But it's where you had to mail physically your query, then wait 30 days for the result. And actually 30 years ago, it would have been a viable business model, because to know something, you had to go to the library or know someone who knows. But obviously, nobody would use such a service today, even if we made a nice website out of it. Alright, I know this example is a bit trivial. In real life, it's less obvious. But we are often tempted to rush into changing the surface instead of changing the core, like putting some paint on some very old school business processes. To understand what's going on and how things can be changed for the better, you have to understand the business. So ask for training material. All teams have training materials for the new joiners. Second strategy, present yourself as an ally. Avoid being seen as a resource. This implies that we sometimes have to say no, or even adapt our design processes to align them with the business strategy. At Société Générale, for example, opening our systems is a priority. You may have heard the term open banking. As designers, we refuse projects that don't have a clear API or architecture approach. This may be strange to hear designers talk about APIs, but it makes sure that we design with real data and contribute to the strategy. We want to open our systems, and we do not want to isolate our users. And when we're able to do this, we can go further. And that is the last strategy. Be part of the solution. Stand out as providing business solution and not just pushing pixels. We usually say that good design is good business. Well, today design is business. Design can provide the research, the insights before things go bad. As designers, we have the power to study and prevent certain types of behavior before they become a threat to our users or to our company. And I'd like to mention an example from Reddit, the community platform. They've introduced something really interesting to reduce harassment and trolling behaviors online. They've implemented what we call the shadow ban. So what's a shadow ban? Instead of a traditional ban, the user can keep posting things, but nobody else can see their content. And this is a design solution to a business problem. To wrap up on Audrey, don't hide from her. You need to understand her challenges and become an ally to be part of the solution. Final wrap. Next time you're like, this idiot really doesn't get design, take a step back. The person in front of you doesn't necessarily have bad intentions. Maybe it's a problem of culture, organization, or business. And now you have ways to deal with every situation. For the culture problem, you can put your foot in the door, use the bandwagon effect, or get a crab attitude. For the organizational problem, you can align your processes, align your qualifications, and learn to speak the language of the company. And finally, for the business problem, well, you can start learning the business to better understand your work context, position yourself as an ally, not a resource, and as a part of the solution. At the end of the day, these strategies create a positive environment, not only for the designers, but also for the Jeans, the Pauls, and the Audreys. And remember, like in video games, the mini-bosses can help us get a seat at the table and keep it. I am ready to hear your stories now.